As a woman who was once in this position when it comes to lust, and I know all the sins, right? Even when I knew all the sins, I was still in this type of lust and addiction with that, right? This is my truth. I will never get on this app and tell you something that I have never gone through or been through. I'm not authentic with myself if I don't do that. So, lust is a sin amongst many other things, right? But what I have always known with God is that what I was reading, not just from my own walk, but for referencing, some people read the Bible, or some people may read the Torah, or other different empowerment books. Everything is not about religion, right? So one of the things that I know about God is when I went back to reading about Cain and Abel and Genesis 4. And you remember when God was like, where's your brother? And then Cain was like, am I my brother's keeper? And he also asked Cain, why are you angry? Why has your countenance changed? Like, what's like your countenance, like your mood, your face expression? Like, what happened to you? What's wrong? Why are you angry? And God was like, if you do good, you should be accepted. If you don't do good, then you don't be accepted. And the other line to that is when God says, if you do well, then you should be accepted. If you don't do well, then sin lieth at the door. And that becomes your desire, and that should rule over you. And when I went back to that, I was like, when I was in that type of lust, and that's the spirit, right? And I was so caught up in there, and it became addictive. And that was me taking my trauma and acting out. Some people are alcoholics. Some people are drug users. Some people use food. Those are, people have different responses to their trauma and, things that happen to them and things they want to be numb from. But when God was pouring into me about lust and the sin of it, and going back to this like a couple weeks ago, if you don't do well, sin lieth at the door. And that becomes your desire. And not only that, it shall rule over you. And you have to think about the actions and the things that you do. It doesn't only affect you. It affects your bloodline. Do you want your children to fight generational curses that you brought on because of sin? A lot of people think you're on these apps doing all these things, and you don't think there's a consequence to it if you don't ask God for forgiveness and unbound yourself from that spirit. What is causing that? Now, I do know there's also good and evil in the world. But I do know that is not becoming of a lot of people. It can be taught, or it can be experienced, or it could be something that they do, whatever it is, whatever type of addiction or sin that you're doing. You have to think about not only yourself and your self-righteousness that you may have, but you need to think about your kids and your family and everyone else that is attached to your bloodline. Because you don't want your children to deal with something that you could have asked forgiveness and repented for. Love you.